Hey everybody, it's Sasquatchers. That means I'm Andrew, he is John, and despite the fact that we had to reschedule and work around guest issues, we are here and we have what I think will be an awesome show tonight. And I'm going to reveal our guest after the intro.
The truth is out there. Never stop looking. Never be sheep. Always disrupt. We are the ungovernable. We are the truth seekers. We are Sasquatchers.
So we are here tonight with Bob and Brittani from the Tales from the Dark podcast, as well as a few other projects. I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves before I forget another word and cause a intro that lasts 15 minutes again. So
it happens.
Frequently. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for kind of saving our show this week. We weren't sure if we were going to have one. So right out of the gate, I want to express that gratitude to you guys.
Well, first off, it's an honor. Thank you for having us. I'm Bob Hicks. My co-host Brittani Clark is here with me. We host the Tales from the Dark podcast, the Tales from the Dark YouTube channel. I also narrate the Missing Persons Mysteries YouTube channel, and we are documentary filmmakers. We are 40 investigators. We're a couple under gunpoint right now. She's kind of staring at me, making sure I include that.
And we're is that under duress?
Well, here's the thing. There's a reason that the webcam's not on.
Oh my god. Yes, all those things combined. We are just investigators and students.
I'm calling 911 right now.
Blink twice if you need help of anything high strangeness.
Very cool. And so I guess I would start at the beginning. Is that something that you both had an interest in before you linked up and became a couple? Or is that the history of your relationship? Or how did you guys get into it?
Okay.
Social security numbers as well?
Credit card numbers. Where we got there.
No, funnily enough, we met playing League of Legends. That's how.
Yes,
that's how we.
Of course. You know. I'm done. I'm out.
You're the most toxic couple you can think of. Let's be honest.
No, so we met during League of Legends, and we were together for a few years before Tales from the Dark kind of became a thing. And funnily enough, I think I came home from work one day. I came to Brittani and I just said, "Hey, I got an idea for this YouTube channel." Now, I've been a paranormal investigator since I was 11, 12 years old. I grew up on Taps, OG ghost hunters. You know. I was that kid knocking on neighbors' doors saying, hey, do you have a ghost in your house? I can help. I'm here to help. Let me in your home. Now.
Ooh.
You also have candy?
Yeah. So I kind of grew up on the the OG paranormal investigators of the early 2000s. And I came home from work one day. I just told Brittani, hey, I've got an idea for a video. It's about a payphone. And she just kind of was like, yep, let's do it. Unlike, normally you be met with some adversity. Brittani's always been extremely supportive of my bizarre ideas and dreams,
endeavors, and everything.
Yeah. So the background of the payphone, it was kind of like an ARG internet mystery called Futel. And basically how this all kind of got started was there were these flyers going around saying, have you been having strange dreams? And me being me, I can't leave well enough alone. So I call the number.
You call all the numbers.
To this day, we're 3 years later, 200 plus episodes. If
are these are these like the flyers that were showing like Salt Lake City and stuff like that?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So
yeah,
I go deep and I find some links to Futel, which is this they claim they're an art project.
Yeah, quote unquote art project.
I use every single chance I get to bash Carl Anderson publicly. He is the he's the curator of the Church of Robotron and the founder of Futel.
He also blocked us on Gmail.
Yeah, he blocked us. He's the only guy in history to block someone on Gmail, I think.
Yeah, it's very weird.
We kind of get this idea for this video. I do my research. We find this payphone in Detroit, Michigan. And I convinced Brittani to drive up there on a whim. It was kind of freaky. We got my buddy Danny, who's a cop up in Toledo. He comes with us. He's like, hey, we're going to die up here.
It's literally the worst street. It's on the worst street. And I think at the time in the US.
Yeah. So
it was bad.
We thankfully end up getting a police escort.
The second go around.
The second go around. We go up there, we do some filming, and then Tales from the Dark kind of sprouted from there. We had some friends over at the Ohio podcast. They kind of found the video randomly in one of these like fringe Facebook groups. And he's like, hey man, would love for you to come on the show and just talk about this. I'm like, oh, awesome. At the time, I think we were getting 100 views on YouTube, and I was like posting on Facebook how amazing 60 to 100 views were, 40 of which were from Brittany, like guaranteed.
Just hitting refresh over and over again.
Exactly.
Yeah. Brohio had us on, and then from there, it just took off like wildfire. And I discovered my love for ufology, my love for all things high strangeness, magic, the occult, conspiracies. It all kind of
big melting pot.
Yeah, melted into a big melting pot, and then Tales from the Dark was born, and here we are. We released our first full-length film this year called Phantom Farm, and we're just constantly ever growing and changing. And like Brittany said at the beginning of the episode here, we're students of the high strangeness.
That's awesome. Tell us about Phantom Farm.
So Phantom Farm is actually hilarious. So Tyler, my friend Tyler Terry, I've known this kid. He was one of the only people in my hometown that was also a ghost hunter. So naturally we were best friends, and we were also emo musicians. So of course, two peas in a pod. And
emo?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. Yeah. Cut my life into pieces. This is my last resort. Gotcha.
Hey, look,
don't let him talk any shit, because he threw a house party and I had to run security while he booked all of these bands from all over the other side to come play that kind of music. So
dude, Ohio is for lovers.
100%.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, see, I was in a post-hardcore band for years. Tyler played, acoustic.
What was the name of the band?
There was many.
I was in several. Become the Catalyst was probably the biggest one that I was a part of.
I'm gonna find them on MySpace.
You will. Funnily enough,
will.
you will. So Tyler Terry, he actually came to work for me all these years later, and one day he comes into work. He goes, "Hey, I'd love to get your opinion on this clip," and he kind of pre-warned me. He's like, "I know you're gonna hate it. Just let me know your thoughts." So he plays it. And a mutual friend of ours, Nathan Barnes, who he's film partners with over at Terror Barn, and then Tyler's program is called Finding Nothing. They're filming for Terror Barn at the Randolph County Asylum over in is it Randolph? I don't remember where
Randolph
it is.
County.
Is it? Yeah, Randolph County.
It's Winchester,
Winchester, Indiana. Thank you. And in this clip, he shows me Nathan has these 3 scratch marks down his back. And I looked at him, I'm like, bull crap. We're not doing this. This is this tired, disgusting paranormal trope of an investigator gets scratched. Sure. And he says, well, here's the thing. He's on film for 30 minutes before, 30 minutes after. I can say during that time he didn't scratch himself, and I watched these welts raise on his back. Tyler is the most skeptical individual when it comes to any kind of evidence, haunting,
experience, anything.
So the fact that he was visually interested in kind of bringing it to me for a second opinion, I said, okay, well, let's go to this place and let's just see what it's about. So we go there, and not to toot our own horn, but roughly 40 minutes into the documentary has some of what I consider to be the most compelling evidence of paranormal activity, life after death, whatever you want to call it, that I've ever seen. And I've spent years of my life consuming this kind of content. Tales from the Dark, before it was a YouTube channel, I did Twitch streams debunking like the top 10 most haunted on YouTube. People would send me their, oh, what is this? It's definitely an orb. I'm like, oh, it's a lens flare. Because you have a $6 security camera. That's what this is. So
that's a moth.
Yeah. So for me to say something is compelling, and it happened to me, and it's something that I still haven't really come to terms with, but it's one of those things where there is no explanation, and we have enough camera footage. We have enough backup evidence to say this wasn't anyone else. What was this thing that happened on that first floor? So that's kind of where Phantom Farm came from. And it just, kind of that's another thing that kind of took fire. We had no way to know as many people were going to watch it as they did. We are loving the Amazon reviews. This didn't have a single jump scare. This isn't a paranormal investigation. I'm like, oh, weird. Didn't know that was a requirement. No one told me before we directed this thing.
Yeah. That's unfortunately what the fan base has been conditioned to have when everything out there is sensationalized. And I don't know how you guys feel about Zach Baggins or whatever, but
let me tell you,
Zach Bilbo Baggins.
he's my favorite, hands down, best to ever do it.
I can't tell if you're being sarcastic or not because your voice is just so.
I think that's cut end of show. I think that's all we need.
That's it. That's all we have to cover.
No. Yeah. My thing for Zach, and I've said this on our show publicly 1,000 times over, he is the best and the worst thing. He's the best entertainer in paranormal content history. End of discussion. He's the best and worst thing to ever happen to paranormal entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
I say the best because we had no way to get this many eyes on any of this high strangeness
phenomenon,
beforehand. Rather, we're talking paranormal. I know he's getting into some ufological stuff now. There was no money in this. There was no one was making a killing. No one was actually being able to pay their bills, doing what they love and chasing, for lack of a better term here, life after death and the proof of it. There were a handful of authors out there who were doing okay, if we're being honest, but they weren't where it should be in order to bring the science into it. And that's where I love shows like Brandon Alvis and Mustafa Gadaloria, I believe is how you say his last name, Haunted Discoveries. They're bringing science to the forefront of the paranormal. Their show is on T&E. Phenomenal guys. Love what they're doing. Without Zach, the interest just wouldn't be there because, the mom and pops who were watching this because, I think I saw a ghost when I was a little girl. They watch Zach and they think that's where the negatives come in because they assume that we're all a Zach Baggins walking around here. So again, it's a double-edged sword.
I mean, I
am. You have a tap shirt on? I can't see through the camera.
Little tap out over there?
Yeah, are you about to rip it off? Yep, there it goes.
Actually, Sasquatcher's shirt, which can be purchased on our Printified pop-up shop.
Yeah,
you didn't have to plug us like that. That's weird.
No, trust me, I do. I spent a lot of time on those designs.
Anyways,
but yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and that's kind of the thing. I was caught off guard by Zach and how he caught on because when his shows first started, it was kind of strange and weird to see that take and that attitude that he presented, because you had the Taps guys, and it was fairly grounded and level-headed, and they're still tapping on pipes to kind of prove that what's going on might not actually be a haunting. And then, you cut over to this next show and there's Baggins standing there like, come on, bro, punch me. Come on, ghost. Like, come on, let's do this. Take a swing. And so I was caught off guard because I found it off-putting, but you're absolutely right. Over time, it's become definitely something that I watch and can't look away from. It's that train wreck.
Yeah, it's sensational.
But it's also the logical progression of entertainment television. I mean, we think about it, the Kardashians, biggest family in the world in 2023 still. Everything that those ladies do turns to instant gold. You had your MTV, you had your, what was it? The Road Rules Challenge, all of these crazy, like, sensational, what can go wrong, Survivor type shows where every week there's this new crazy thing happening. It was a matter of time, in my opinion, before that caught fire with paranormal television. And you had the way that was kind of blazed for your Zach Baggins, this guy who in the beginning, I don't think was self-aware, and then progressively became more and more self-aware and then molded into this character. Yeah. Because anyone who thinks that Zach is completely just or completely unaware of who he is, how he's presenting himself, they're not telling themselves the truth. He's 100% self-aware of what he's doing and what his brand is
and why it works.
Yeah. And that's why I think in these later seasons, especially, you've seen it really start to ramp up, and it's going to slowly, you're going to see that decline as we're seeing the rise of paranormal entertainment go to your YouTubes, your TikToks, your Instagram Reels, X, all of these things. People are now getting back into debunking. It's this great cycle that we go through between, I want to see the craziest apparition that's ever been caught on tape, I don't care if it's fake, to I want to explain to you why it's faked the way that it is. And we can talk about the Satori Haas situation. We can talk about Sam and Colby. There's always rooms in these paranormal mediums for every type of content, because let's face it, everyone was 12 years old at one point watching these paranormal television shows, and now everyone is 31 years old watching shows like Hellier. We're looking for more of the fringe explanations for what this phenomenon truly is.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought Hellier up because that was one thing that I wanted to talk about with you guys. So you had Tyler on an episode and you had sent it to me, and it was one of the things that I had listened to in preparation for this interview because one of my best friends, I was an executive chef, he was my sous chef. It was a wonderful collaboration of talent and skill and personalities that kind of blended together. When we hired him, the first thing
Calm
that
down, you guys were just cooking potatoes.
I'm in love. The first thing that that we bonded over was the Mothman, and he sent me to Hellier. He's like, "You should watch this. It's on Amazon." And then I watched it, and one thing that they talk about all the time is synchronicity and synchronicity and synchronicity. And it's like every episode, like you hear the word almost to meme level, but it really beat into my head to look for that in life. And just in time leading into this show, I've just had a synchronicity after synchronicity to the point where even when we started this show, every episode, even without encouragement, kind of synchronized with the one before that. Each guest would be completely different than the one that came before. And we would still end up
we had some
somehow
weird tie-ins
falling into the same talking points or scenarios being brought up by, you know, a new age psychic versus a
Roman Catholic priest.
You're right. So even to the point that when we land on this show, there's just synchronicity. So, you know, we fast forward to episode 24 is where we're at, 24, 25. And, you know, I need to come up with a new guest. And I'm thinking about even canceling this week's show. And then you reach out and we start chatting. And then the first link I get from you has Tyler from Hellier. And to me, I just kind of feel like that, again, is a synchronicity that I don't want to overlook. And it's something that I'm just drawn to. So for anyone listening who hasn't seen that show, I think it's still on Amazon, if I'm not mistaken. And
I think it's on Prime and YouTube. Also, just to cut in here, we have also had Alan Greenfield on the podcast
multiple times.
I'll have to go back and check those out.
As important as Tyler Strand is, and as much as we enjoyed that interview, Alan Greenfield has so much to offer that was not presented during Hellier, whether that be because of lack of time or the fact that he wasn't a main character in the show, for lack of a better word. Yeah. The Alan Greenfield episodes we do, we really dive into the magical occult side of high strangeness. So I highly encourage anyone who maybe is looking for a more broad explanation for what this phenomenon could be. Just again, I hate to plug our own show and interview about it, but the Alan Greenfield
absolutely. Okay, so we have not covered the occult, although I did try. Our first time that we were stood up, I was having a magistrate from the Church of Satan, and for whatever reason, things didn't work out. He didn't end up on the show, but that's something that I have. I mean, I wouldn't call it like a deep interest. I'm not out doing, you know, seances and practicing witchcraft. I have a witchcraft book that I used to thumb through. But if you have any occult stuff we can talk about, you know, I'm all ears. Let's fire it up.
We are those cultists in the woods. Let's be honest.
It's actually hilarious you bring up you're not doing seances. We're actually doing a seance in a couple of days.
Yeah.
In a location. Unfortunately, we can't say
disclose.
Where. Yeah. But
you don't want anybody raining on that parade.
It's Memphis, Tennessee, if anybody's wondering.
But no, it is actually hilarious. Yeah, and like Brittany says, we are those cultists that you see out in the woods. That we actually had a T-shirt for Halloween 2 years ago.
Yep.
That Brittany had designed, and it's a witch that's 100% her, even though she says it's not. Around a campfire, they're doing this big ritual, and it just says, "Be the cultist you want to see in the woods." So that's kind of our.
You guys are the cultists that I yell to get off my lawn every night.
Exactly. You just didn't know it yet.
Yeah, but no. So I think the occult as a whole is often overlooked, and it's because the definition of occult, when you think about the occult, it's quite literally
Secret wisdom.
secret wisdom. So it's very hard for your general person to just grasp an understanding, and it's even harder to apply this to the phenomenon. For again, I love and hate the term phenomenon because I don't think it's all one thing, but I'm open to the idea that it could be, in fact, just one thing that's intertwining ghosts, UFOs, our cryptids, all of the weird happenings. So I mean, the occult, I think we have to do a separate interview for that, solely because there's so much attachment when it comes to, and Brittani can kind of attest to this, preparing one ritual, for example. How long would that take you if I just said, hey, I want to do a ritual for money? How long would that take you to prepare a full-blown, we're cloak and time, the whole nine ritual out in the woods?
Not the cloak and time.
30 seconds.
Well, okay. We don't really do magic like that, though. That's kind of a hard example to
Have you watched Harry Potter?
That's actually what I do. How did you know? No, I mean, I grew up in rural Appalachia, and so a lot of times that I was growing up around superstition and folklore and things like that, those had deep-rooted connections to occult and witchcraft. I mean, you literally have hedge witches in the mountains that are, it's just as normal as going on church on Sundays. I mean, it is deeply ingrained. Magic and the occult is deeply, deeply ingrained in the Appalachian Mountains.
And it's everywhere.
And magic is everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, one of our favorite examples we do consistently is the birthday cake. Can you kind of explain the birthday cake? It's basically when you're blowing out candles on your birthday, on your cake, you're making a wish, you're practicing magic. And we did an entire episode where we titled Magic is Everywhere, where Brittani did kind of dive into a lot of the things that went on back home, like the bottle trees, for example, and then the
horseshoe above the door, and things like that. Yeah. And little things that we do when we're out in the woods. I mean, like when we go fishing, for example, anytime we have leftover bait, we always throw it back in the spot. Like wherever we were fishing, we throw the bait back in the spot, because we know that if we come back, it was an offering to hopefully get more fish the next time we come. And so we'll keep coming back to the same spot. We'll keep doing the same routine. And that in itself could be considered an offering, a ritual, because you have intention. You're wanting to manifest that the next time you come there, you have results. And so, I mean, magic is everywhere. Personal is universal. I mean, we say that a lot with filmmaking, podcasting, anything, but it's also true when it comes to magic. Synchronicity is just a meaningful coincidence. I mean, you just look for it around your life. And we found also, one thing I wanted to say about synchronicity is that when we don't follow the synchronicities, when we don't go to the places that we're being called to go to, that's usually when things go south. So follow the synchronicity. And it doesn't have to even be something you see in Hellier. It's stuff in your own backyard and things that mean a lot to you.
Lead you to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So
well,
this might be pretty basic, but just for like our listeners and that who might just be coming in the first time, can you explain manifestation just from like a high level point of view?
So that is also a very complicated subject. Manifestation and its basic terms, at least how I interpret it, is willing something into existence, whether that be willing a feeling, something material, or a result. And that is a key part in what a lot of magicians and people who follow rituals and occult knowledge, manifestation is a key part in operation, basically. So when you dive into magic, you're looking at life and the universe as something that can be molded. Think of like a lump of clay. You think of it as something that you start with energy. You start with this lump of clay, and through time, through rituals, through dedication, can be molded into what you want to see. One example that I used in the Magic is Everywhere episode, which I would recommend that for people who are starting out with magic, because it details our journey with magic. But if you are having, if you were going on a lunch break one day and you were really hungry and all you were craving was McDonald's, you were just craving McDonald's over and over and over again. You had a busy day at work, you had 10 minutes to get back. You had to make sure that this break went well for you to get back. A chaotic part of manifestation would be if you were constantly thinking about it, and then you, let it be, and then you let it float into the subconscious mind. If you show up at McDonald's and the line's empty, you get right through, they're fast with your food, it's nice and hot, you go back to work, that's part of manifestation. You can say that's a coincidence. You can say that's, doesn't mean anything, but it could to someone. I mean, that's a more basic form of manifestation that I've used.
Yeah. What's actually hilarious is listening to you describe this, because it's very hard when someone says, can you give a basic, because you don't realize the building blocks, your feminine, your masculine energies, the subconscious, the importance of paradigms, duality, all of that conversation comes into play with something as basic as manifestation. For me, I always use the example of Legos. If I'm really thinking like, man, it would be cool to see Buckingham Palace, and then I see a Mega Bloks or Lego set and I build that, I've manifested my vision into reality at a very core elementary standpoint. But you can also approach it as thought science or just wishful thinking. I mean, every emo kid's heard I'm a wishful thinker with the worst intentions. That line is quite literally laced in magic. You have intention, you have your thought science, and you have you're a wishful thinker. So great answer by Brittani. Again, this is kind of why I love having her as a part of this, because my brain went to Legos. That's the first place my brain went to, is Legos and Mega Bloks.
I understand Legos too. So that's
mine went to Cheetos,
but hey, food, McDonald's, Cheetos. I think we were all synchronized there for a second. But how do you go from something on like the real basic side of that to your example about McDonald's to perhaps maybe the more complicated issue of manifestation gets thrown around so much these days, but
how do people manifest like these dog man, or like these dark like matter energy portals that like people proclaim that they can manifest?
Okay, so do you want to take this one, because this is where you're people are muddying the terminology here with manifestation, and they're confusing that with quite literal
generation.
Yeah, it's very difficult to kind of go down this pathway, because it's the example that you can use consistently is if you're walking in the woods and all you're thinking about is the worst possible things that could happen. The very first bad thing that happens, you're going to associate with, I made that happen in my mind because of fear or because of X, Y, or Z. Like I hear these dogman encounters, like consistently we've had some written in where I've had coyotes on my property. I was out one night, I was concerned about the coyotes on my property, and I saw dogman. Okay, well, did your fear manipulate the coyote to turn into a dogman? Did your fear manipulate your actual perception of a coyote to a dogman? Or did your fear manipulate the reality in which we're standing in
and
created the dogman?
The dogman.
So what I'd recommend to anyone who's interested in the building blocks, the fundamentals of magic, this is a free resource you can use. Go to Mind and Magic over on YouTube. Frater Xavier has an entire playlist called the Mystical Academy, the Magic Academy.
Mystical Academy. No, the Magical Academy.
Yeah. And you'll really understand ritual magic from this gentleman, because he starts it out the best way humanly possible, which years ago I didn't understand when we got into this. He said, I didn't want to make this series because the worst thing a magician can do for his magic is to talk about his magic. I had no idea what that meant until 3 years later. And it's really kind of hilarious, because we look back and we're 3 years into our journey with Tales from the Dark. I grew up a devout Catholic.
I grew up a Southern Baptist.
If you told me at 30 I would find magic and be a ritual magician, I probably would have condemned you to hell from my Catholic upbringing. That would have been my.
I'm still going to.
Yeah, but I think a lot of what you're referring to is these people who, first off, when someone claims I can create a portal with my mind, show me.
Mm-hmm.
because again, that's where the skeptical side of my brain just
jumps into overdrive.
And as a magical practitioner, it's almost an oxymoron to say I'm a skeptical magician, because belief, you have to almost have blind belief in your practice. But I'm also not going to say, oh, I fully believe that this person can summon a Bigfoot. Now, do I believe that you've seen a Bigfoot? 100%. I would almost bet my, I bet my pigeons you've seen one. But do I think that you summoned it, or were you at the right place at the right time? Or are you Chris Baldosi, I think is how you say his last name, where he quite literally was fishing with his son and 3 of his employees when he got thrown in head first into a now 10+ year long contactee case where he is in consistent contact with these beings. He's seeing werewolves. He's quite literally stopping assassinations on the Pope via spirit box. Like, there's a lot more to it that I think people give it credit for. And I think there's also a lot of eccentrics out there. And Brittani speaks on this quite a bit over on the podcast. Unfortunately, with the fringe side of things, you do attract not always the people that are in the best state of mind.
Or people with the best intentions.
Yes.
Well, we figured that out just by having a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as the resident Catholic here on the podcast, speaking towards magic and religion, and I'm not going to pick out any specific religion. I'm just going to say anything post Mesopotamia up through Abrahamic to the Eastern religions. What if any magic tie-ins exist with those religions that like people would normally overlook or maybe deny even?
Oh Lord, here we go.
Okay, well we're gonna start with everything.
This is okay. So rabbit hole. We're
gonna no. I'm serious. We're gonna quite literally start with everything. We're gonna go into. I love and I hate this question because I'm always so overly prepared and I forget half of my the notes that I have here. So the entire idea of Western religion in its entirety, if we're talking about Christianity just as a blanket statement, there's enough theories out there when we get into the Dead Sea Scrolls, when we start to talk about the sacred mushroom and the cross, that the entirety of what we believe is modern Christianity is in fact fertility rituals that were passed down through various enigmatic riddles. And half of this has been either brought forth to the initiator through magic psilocybin mushrooms, and then has been misinterpreted and mistranslated 3,000 times over into modern religion. If you go into any Catholic church and you're watching them swinging the incense, let's have the discussion about the acacia bush, of Appalachia. These people that were speaking in tongues, this would have been 1950s, 1960s Appalachia. They're speaking in tongues. They're seeing
a little bit earlier than that.
Maybe the 30s and 40s. Somewhere. Yeah. They're speaking in tongues. They are consistently seeing
brimstone and
hellfire and brimstone. They're seeing their other churchgoers turn into demons. And yet the service got started by an altar boy coming through and swinging incense. Well, this incense just so happened to be a freaking burning acacia bush in a small 4x4 little schoolhouse confined space with zero insulation. These people
and zero ventilation.
These people were completely blitzed. Having
the Appalachians would not have been Catholic though. They would have been Pentecostal.
No,
Pentecostal.
There are 100% subregions and hollers in Appalachia that have that are Catholics and have been Catholics since the early teens. That's nothing new. And even your Pentecostal still adopted the swinging of incense. It's just not. This is the problem with Appalachia as a whole.
Again, well, Appalachia as a whole is a hodgepodge of all different types of cultures and races.
Yeah,
because the coal mining companies out in eastern Kentucky, West Virginia, and Western Virginia, like the state Virginia, all recruited straight from the boat in New York to have a bunch of people from all types of nations come down and help mine in the mines. And so that created these sub-communities of different cultures, of different folklore, of everything throughout Appalachia. And so you have these sub-communities of Catholics, of Baptists, of Pentecostal, of everything.
Lynch, Kentucky being a great example. Lynch, Kentucky had an entire subsection that only spoke Italian.
Yeah. And they also had, I can't remember there was another group.
Yeah, I think German maybe, but yeah.
I think it was German.
You know, Italian was a big thing. And so you saw a lot of these other mixed cultures of religion be brought into your Pentecostal, being brought into your Baptist, your Southern Baptist, depending on where you are in the South and Appalachia specifically, you will see carryovers that you would not see at any other Baptist church. Southern Baptist churches are completely different than what you would see here in just Ohio. So we're talking a 7-8 hour drive south. You can have a completely different Sunday service than you would get, 8 hours north, solely because of the hodgepodge and the melting pot that was Appalachia, especially when coal was king. So when you start, like I said, you get into the magic attachments with the occult, with ufology, for example. I mean, I can't say without a shadow of a doubt that they didn't see angels, but I can say that half the encounters in the Bible sound an awful lot like modern contactee cases of UFOs. The bright, blinding light outside.
John Keel actually talked about this a lot in the Mothman Prophecies.
In the
we just talked about that.
We had a guest, or his name.
Yeah.
Even prior to that, we had a guest, John Myler, who his entire career is based on taking ufology and comparing it to the Bible. Essentially, he's a devout Christian who that's his main focus is, ancient astronaut kind of stuff, UFO in the heavens and all of that stuff.
Yeah. Like Brittany just said, Tyler Strand, I think it was Tyler Strand and Hellier, said one man's angels, another man's alien. So
yeah,
it's one of those things. Magic is so intertwined though, because it's when it comes down to the base of any religion, it is, you have your belief, you have your hymns that you sing. Well, the law of vibration in the Kabbalion is awful similar. If you break it down from a musical standpoint of hymns, you're vibrating your voice. You're bringing everyone's vibration up through singing, the resonation. That's your law of vibration right there. That's in the Kabbalion. So when you break all these things down, you start to see
the Kabbalion is the Hermetic principles that have been allegedly passed down from ancient Egypt and the ancient Hermeticists, what was then considered the master of masters.
Yeah, Hermes Trismegistus, not the third. That's our dog. Hermes Trismegistus. Yeah, we have
that's
a dog.
Whole other story.
I got Brittany a puppy for Christmas. I named him Charles Hermes Trismegistus the third. That's a long story, but when you read through something as simple as like the three initiates present the Kabbalion, I highly recommend. It's free on Audible. You start to apply these Hermetic principles. And you will notice, oh, well, I did this in church, but we called it this, the kneeling and the standing. You'll see that very consistently come up through several magic practices. Rather, you're talking Thelemites doing it. The rising nun that Crowley kind of, I don't want to say forced upon people, but he kind of did at the same time. You see a lot of these small little things pop up and you realize, oh, well, if you stretch this out on a long enough timeline, all of this fits magical practice that was lost, forgotten, and brought back for the 30th time. And there are no new ideas. We're on, John Keel says the great phonograph in the sky. No one's ever had a single new idea in history.
And one thing I want to add to this too is, I did not grow up Catholic. Like I said, I grew up Southern Baptist. But one thing I really had to get over as we started learning more about the occult, about magic in general and religion, magic isn't this dirty thing. It's not a dirty word. And it felt wrong when I first started looking into this. It felt like I was doing something wrong because I had been conditioned growing up to think that anything outside of my Baptist home, of my Baptist church, and anything outside of that was not the right answer. So it really does take some conditioning to get used to even saying the word magic, and understanding what that means for you could mean something for someone else differently entirely. But it's not, just because I say magic happens doesn't mean someone is abandoning their faith. In my definition, in my view, magic is happening whether you acknowledge it or not. Yeah. Magic, in my opinion, is one of the ways that the universe goes round. So,
and then there's Magic the Gathering too. So.
Yes,
absolutely.
Well, I mean, but to kind of answer your questions, I think you just have to go through the 7 Hermetic principles. You have the principle of mentalism. All is divine mind. The universe is mental. So again, you'll hear the all, and the all will go back as far as sorry, my brain just had
the Druids,
the Druidic teachings. Yes, so that's when you have the all, and then you're going to see the principle of correspondence: as above, so below; as within, so without. That's you're going to hear this consistently in the Old Testament. The principle of vibration: nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. So when you're in a church, you're supposed to have the energy up. You're coming here to kind of pledge your fealty for your Lord, for lack of a better way to kind of approach that. The principle of polarity: everything is dual, opposites are identical in nature. You'll see that all the time between the angels and the demons. That's, again, pretty simple there.
Duality, yeah.
Yep. The principle of rhythm: everything flows out, rhythm compensates. Going to go back in the same thing. Then the principle of cause and effect, the principles of gender. All of this stuff is rewritten you'll see it more in the Old Testament than you do in the New Testament, especially the King James Version. But when you go through and you apply things like the book of Job, for example, your cause and effect. The book of Job is a huge one. I love this example because it's my favorite book in the entire Bible. And for anyone who thinks I'm anti, Christianity, I literally have scripture tattooed on my feet. I still
you're re-listening throughout the entire Bible right now of Johnny Cash narrating.
Yeah, there's a free Johnny Cash narration of the King James Version of the Bible. I highly recommend anyone that's interested to go listen to that. It's free on Spotify. But in the book of Job, it was quite literally the devil said, "I can test even your strongest supporter, and I guarantee I can get him to come to my side." So, you have your cause there of, okay, well, here's the wager that God or Jesus, God, whatever we want to, it depends on which book you're reading, says, okay, yep, let's give that a go. Well, he kills his wife, kills his children, takes away his farm, takes away all of his land, kills all of his livestock. And Job says, nope, I still am loyal to my Lord and Savior. I am still your supporter. That's your cause and effect right there. So you'll break down all these stories and you can apply Hermetic principles to literally every single book of the Bible, whether it's Revelations. It doesn't seem to matter. And depending on who you talk to, the Kabbalion's been around a lot longer than modern Christianity.
The thing I think we should end on in this part of that conversation is that there are, in my opinion, and in Bob's opinion as well, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of overlap between all religions, old and new, modern and ancient. There are themes that have been consistent throughout, whether that be these beams of light that bring great wisdom and great change to our prophets, to our hero's journey people. I mean, it spans across all cultures, time and space. So when you start looking at it and start learning about things outside your comfort zone, then you can start to see the connections and the coincidences that seem to pop up all over the world, from the remotest, tribe in South America all the way to modern religion. So that's how I will end that. But if you have anything else to say,
no,
my entire life is out of my comfort zone.
Well, and that's important. But no, the only thing I want to end on, again, I hope we didn't turn anybody off too much there. It's just such a difficult topic to approach and to approach properly. And so I always try and make sure, hey, people know I'm not dogging on the religion. I completely support you believe in whatever you believe. And especially if it makes you a better person, then by all means, I think you should go for it.
For your personal growth and peace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think hopefully that answered your question. How we kind of got long-winded there.
We like long-winded answers anyway. That's knowledge, That's why we invite people on here. I was listening very carefully because I was paying attention and I feel like I learned a couple of things from that.
Good job paying attention, Drew.
I wasn't.
Sometimes it works.
That makes one of us.
But I have a far less deep question. Still on the magic side.
Mashed potatoes or baked?
Mashed potatoes. Because you got to put a pound of butter in there.
Okay. All right, Paula Dean, calm it down.
First of all, it's scalloped potatoes, and it's not even.
I'm sorry. Okay,
you're just wrong. Like, how do you live day in and day out knowing you're just wrong?
Well, usually I just convince myself that I'm right. And that tends to work until I argue with everyone around me.
There we go.
But we talked about three potatoes. So now, segueing into the question, rule of three. Is that like a real thing, or is that something that layman's like myself here and then kind of cling to as far as that area of your expertise is concerned?
That is not something that it is absolutely riddled throughout, not just magic, not just rituals, not just the occult side of things, but religion too. I mean, you have the Holy Trinity. I mean, that's like the best example I can bring up right now. I mean, 3 is laden across everything that we do and everything that we have learned, inadvertently too. Like, I mean, it's a subconscious. The triangle, the 3. It's almost like if there is a force out there controlling what we see and what we do, or influencing what we see and what we do, it's almost like the 3 is the deepest connection to it that I could possibly think of.
Yeah, I would agree. And then you have the obvious answer for all of our Hellier fans. Thelemites 93 is a huge thing. When you get into the cipher, and if it comes up more than 3 times in your cipher pool, pay attention to it. That's something that a lot of people believe in. And then when it comes to high strangeness, we love to look at our areas and find our rule of 3.
Yeah.
If someone tells me about this crazy Bigfoot experience they had in Salina, Ohio, give me an hour. I'm going to find you a poltergeist. I'm going to find you a Bigfoot, or I'm going to find you some type of a crazy cryptid that no one's covering. And I'm going to find a way to connect all 3 of those things.
I mean, they usually do come in 3s. I mean, that's just one thing that we learned throughout our personal experiences, because we've gone out and had quite a few weird experiences going out in the woods, and at night especially. But these things really do come in 3. They usually come around water. Moving water is and John Keel talks about this too. I don't remember what chapter or what book, but moving water is one of the first things we look for any kind of UFO encounter.
It's kind of a conduit.
Cryptid. Yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. Like it's powering the phenomenon, which again, I can't understand or grasp how that would be possible. I could only make guesses, but moving water is huge. I mean, when I had my UFO sighting out in Ohio, I mean, there was a huge river right by it and a huge park. So, but the thing, like Bob said, they come in 3. Say if you have a UFO experience, there's usually poltergeist activity somewhere around, or a ghost sighting or apparition sighting, and then there's usually a cryptid sighting as well. These things travel together, it seems, or show together. It's like once one ripple happens, all 3 happens.
Yeah, and then you have to get into the conversation of, is it actually 3 separate things, or is this all the exact same thing? Yeah.
Right. Okay. We just blew my mind a little bit because, and I won't get super into it. I feel like I never shut up about it. I had a UFO experience as well.
Oh, here we go.
It was one of the single greatest moments of my life. And until right now, I had never even put it together. I have a creek right there where it was happening. So I had the running water directly behind me. I actually eventually moved into the house where this happened at as well. But wow. Okay, cool. Can you tell me about your UFO experience? Because that's kind of my jam.
Yeah.
So I have to preface this with this is when I knew Brittany was all in on UFOs, because I'll send you the video later. It's got some vulgar language, so I can't we can't play it here on the show, but I'll send it to you. But Brittany just calls me. And initially,
I was by myself. All right. I was like 3 hours away from the house.
Yeah, but you were so calm. You're like, "Hey, I just saw a UFO," and I'm like, "What?" And then
I said,
the panic set in.
I said, "I think I just saw a UFO," because I didn't know for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was traveling to go see a friend out in bum F nowhere, basically, And which I'll tell you guys the town afterwards. We have a whole podcast where basically Bob interviewed a contactee, which was me. And we went through the whole encounter from a scientific standpoint. But here's what I remember. So I was just driving through this town. I was waiting basically for me to be able to go over to this friend's house. And she wasn't ready yet. So I was just driving around and waiting for her to text me. And so I drive by what was an O'Reilly's. It was some kind of auto parts store. It was an O'Reilly's on my left and a school or a like school transportation department. Like there were school buses on my right. And my window was like halfway down because I vape. And so I had it down for ventilation. So there was no refraction on my window is what I'm getting at. And I see this glow on the left-hand side. And I see these, I think it was five lights in a diagonal, like 45-degree angle. Right there in the sky, right beside me as I'm driving along this road. And then, do you guys have RGB like on your computers or around your house?
Yeah.
You know that breathing effect? Like how it just kind of slowly dissipates? That's what happened. So it was 5 like orangish, yellowish lights. And they all just breathed out one by one until they all disappeared. 5 lights right by each other. So I called Bob and I'm like, hey, I think I just saw a UFO. And he was like, really? What happened? So I told him this. And I ended up pulling over at the O'Reilly's. And I look behind, I'm looking on WAS because I'm trying to figure out what was behind this O'Reilly's to see if it could have been something generated from there. This thing was close, by the way. I mean, it felt like it was right above the roof of this store. There's nothing back there. There was literally an open field, no lights, no nothing. So I told Bob, I'm just going to chase this thing down. So I turned down a road that less than a block away from this O'Reilly's. I mean, it was right by cornfields that were already harvested at this time. Or maybe they were just planting, I don't remember what time. No corn stalks. We go down the road. I go down the road and I see this thing by the full moon. And it's 3 lights in a row, 2 on top, 1 like kind of catty cornered at the bottom. Same effect, breathing in and out. So I chase this thing in. Again, this is the second time I saw it. So I start driving down a road. I start heading towards it, what I thought was towards it. And that's when I actually got it on film. This is the 3rd time I'd seen it. And it's flashing in and out. I'm seeing sparkling in the sky, which I thought was a really weird effect. It was almost like a shimmer all across the sky. I mean, it literally looked like someone threw glitter in the air is how it looked to me. But the same orangish yellow lights, they weren't in a row this time. They were the second 2 times were like closer to the moon, higher up in the sky. But yeah, Bob can send you the video. I didn't have any negative effect that I could think of. I mean, I didn't have any short-term memory loss. I didn't see anything else. But according to Tyler Terry, it's a freaking Chinese lantern. So
yeah.
Yeah. I had kind of the same skepticism brought to me a couple of weeks ago with mine, that it was, party spotlights that you would see outside of a 1950s movie theater, as if that is in my town.
It's clearly a hot air balloon.
Obviously, it's a weather balloon.
What's interesting is I actually did disprove the Las Vegas UFO sightings last year with the Belazzo's use of spotlights. They were quite literally doing that evening. They were doing a 1920s like gangster theme something. I can't remember the whole story, but people were sending this to me consistently, and I ended up looking and finding out that they were using these giant movie style spotlights in Las Vegas the night of all these UFO sightings. But the thing that's crazy is I don't think the UFO story is the craziest encounter we had. I think the Randonautica story might top your UFO encounter.
Oh yeah, it absolutely does.
I don't know if you guys want to hear this or not, but we kind of saw a Bigfoot. I'm not really sure what it was that we saw in the woods.
Yeah, we still have a couple of minutes. We can definitely take this story.
It was my dad, wasn't it?
No.
It was actually Bob in a suit. All right.
Well,
You're fooling everybody.
Relatively early. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying my dad's name's Bob too, so that works.
Early on in YouTube, we got started around the time that Randonautica was like a huge thing. And Brittany wanted to do a video for a channel she was going to start. We ended up kind of absorbing that into the Tales from the Dark channel, where we covered Randonautica. And we went to a handful of locations, and we were kind of like proving that if you look for something hard enough, you're going to find it. Like, I think one was like the color, go here, and I'll just tell you the color red. We found a red barn.
It really is. You're trying to use will and manifestation to utilize the app, which again was before, right? We did the Randonautica like 3 months before we actually started researching and actually actively practicing magic. So it was a good introduction to skepticism and how focusing so hard on something will make that thing happen, because you're going to find coincidences. I mean, it's the same reason why we don't really do numerology, at least we're not right now.
Yeah.
It's when you look hard enough, you're going to find a pattern, some kind of pattern. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, so we decided to do one last stop on this trip. And did you say we're looking for something spooky or what?
Haunting, I think I said.
It was something rather vague, and it sent us to Tip City, Ohio, at a golf course, a disc golf course, rather.
So how it works is like you have this. It's an app, and it has this loading screen of, it uses your location. It has this loading screen of, okay, think of what you want to see when you get here, and we'll auto generate coordinates. You don't say it out loud. You don't type it in. Nothing. I mean, it literally. You sit there, you think, and then it generates the coordinates, and you go to those coordinates, and that's how it works.
And now this video is still up on the Tales from the Dark YouTube channel. It's a few years old at this point, so don't
judge us too harshly.
Yeah, mind the audio and video quality, because we were just getting started. But we go to this disc golf course in Tip City. Funnily enough, right by the Ohio River is raging right next to us, and these coordinates were back in the woods, like relatively in a thicker part of the wooded area there.
I mean, and this was like, there was some thicket through this. I mean, it was September, I think. September.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, I think it was August or September. So, I mean, there was still like a lot of thick underbrush on the ground.
Yeah. And so we walk up to the spot, and I found like women's underwear or something like on the ground. Like, oh, that's hilarious. Whatever.
Wonderful.
And then I realized, like, oh, we're not actually at the coordinates. The coordinates are actually still further into this woods.
Block of woods. Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of like push my way through, and all of a sudden I just stop and I say, what the F was that? And it scared me because I'm 6'5". I'm a rather large individual. This thing was bigger than I was. And people ask, well, how can you tell? Well, I saw it. And when you're this big, whenever you see something bigger than you, especially if it's a person,
you know instantly.
Yeah, you know instantly. If I see someone taller than me, I'm like, you're gonna die soon. Something's wrong with you. I'm worried about your health. That's where my brain instantly goes. But this thing was larger than me, and it moved so fast that I blinked twice and it was gone. And so we have this encounter. We're both like, what did we just see? What was this? Did you see it when it happened, Brittany?
I heard it. But you were in front of me, because remember, I was wearing my dress.
That's right. Yeah. So you heard it. You mean, and this thing tore through these trees.
Yeah.
And so we leave, and we go and we ask these disc golfers who clearly did not want to be bothered. But at this point, we threw caution to the wind. Like, I'm like, we got to talk to these guys. And we asked them, was this when we came back and talked to them? I don't remember.
No. We literally walked out of the woods. We had walked into they were in the middle of throwing.
That's right.
And we were standing by the car. We were like, what the F just happened? This is crazy. There were little like pathways like throughout this really thick woods, all up and down this block of woods, which I thought was very weird. And by the time that we had gotten done looking around, seeing if we could re-find this thing, which we didn't, those disc golfers had come out, and you just asked him. One guy hated you.
Yeah.
He did not want nothing to do with you.
But the other guy was like, what's weird is there used to be a guy who would sit in the woods up the river some.
Yeah. Like literally across there's like a little bridge.
Yeah.
He pointed that way.
And he I guess he would sit there with his shotgun on an old
lawn chair.
And he asked him because he saw this guy there day in and day out for, what do you say, weeks, months, like for months. He finally asked the guy, hey, what are you doing? he goes, "Oh, I'm looking for Bigfoot because I see him here and I hear him here. I know he's here and I'm going to get him." And I was like, that is the craziest thing, because we just saw this creature, whatever this was in the woods. Again, you can see it on video. You can't really see much. We slowed it down as best you can. You can see a giant mass moving. That's all you can see on YouTube. So I go home and I check BFRO, and sure as hell, almost in the exact spot where we were a few years prior, a mother and her children heard the whooping noises, heard the knocking on the trees, heard the scratches, and then they saw a Bigfoot creature right there on the Ohio River, right next to where we saw this creature. I had no prior knowledge of this. I didn't know what BFRO was. Like, again, this is very early on in our escapades. Yeah. So I'm getting like indoctrinated into what BFRO is. And then right here again is this Bigfoot sighting that apparently was also corresponded with like 3 other sightings in the area within just a few months after they saw this Bigfoot in the same exact area that we saw whatever this creature was. So can I say we saw a Bigfoot? No. Can I say I saw something larger than I was on 2 legs sprint through the woods faster than anything I've ever seen move? Yeah, I can say that, and I'll die on that hill. People say it's a deer. Some people say, oh, it looks to be about 2 feet tall. The deer is my
favorite one.
Yeah, because we did go back to try and debunk it. And I stood in the spot, and this thing was
taller than you.
Had to be 7.5, 8 feet tall. I mean, it was, twice as big as I was, and that's well, not twice as big, but it was huge in comparison. And I'm like pretty used to being like the biggest thing around whenever we're out in the woods doing weird stuff like that.
And the last thing I'll add to this is we took this footage, the original footage, down to Eastern Kentucky. Because we spent a lot of time down there, especially after Hellier and things like that. But also just Appalachia always has my heart and will always be my home. But there was these 2 good old boys that we had met in a vape store, and we had took the footage to them. He was an active hunter, had been a hunter his whole life, passed down through generations, as usually happens out there.
Lives on a mountain, literally hunts and traps on, like he bought the property.
Tracks, yeah,
solely so he could hunt, trap, and track on his own property. Like we're talking bear, deer, everything.
So we took the footage to him, and I mean, the thing about the footage for me, and that will always be for me, is when we slowed it down and we zoomed in a little bit, there was this bottle. Okay, so that's the one thing. There's this Gatorade bottle that gets flipped in the video. And it literally like someone's trying to do like the 360.
The bottle flip challenge.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. But as he's flipping it, you can see with the shadows and the light coming through the trees, an elbow. It looks like an elbow crease of this really freaking hairy arm.
Like it's pumping its arms when it's sprinting.
Yeah, because it's like it throws it up in the air like out of startle.
Yeah.
And just takes off.
And the hunter's the one, correct me if I'm wrong, he pointed out the pumping of the arms. Because his first question was, you guys have black bears in Ohio? And I said, no, especially not in Tip City, which is, if you're not familiar, most people know Dayton, Ohio. That's an extremely like metropolitan area. This is
the woods don't connect. I mean, it's literally, when I say a block of trees, I mean like a block of trees. Like if something's going to go across something, it has to cross a field.
Yeah. And it's a very like residential area. Yeah. There's no black bears, because he said it kind of looks like a bear. He's like, but what's weird is it's pumping its arms as it's running, and you can see it here. And he points it out. And ever since then, I was like, holy crap, you're right. And because he the first time he saw it, he's like, yeah, it's not a deer. Can I see it again? And he watched it, because it's definitely not a deer. Do you guys have bear? No, I don't think it's a bear, because bears don't pump their arms when they're running on their hind legs.
I mean, we brought it on our iPad, and he literally just scrubbed through it 100 times.
For probably 25, 30 minutes. He said, I don't know. I've never seen anything like that before. I grew up in the woods. I live in the woods. I have no idea what that is, but I can tell you what it's not. And it's not a deer. And I was like, awesome. Fantastic.
You need to go see those good old boys again.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I'm not going to say a similar experience, because it was far from that. But me and a couple of dudes that I don't talk to anymore definitely saw something quite similar and have it on video as well. And it's on an old YouTube channel. And I forgot it existed until you started telling me this story. So I can 100% relate to everything that you just said. Your intentions were a little more honorable than what we were doing. We were legitimately just bored by watching 7 Pounds, the Will Smith movie, and then got hit by like this massive storm, and then almost group hysteria ourselves into thinking that something else was going on. And so we went out with a camera, and we also bumped into a like large, absolutely huge, taller than us figure that for a second I almost convinced myself was a gray alien, but it was too dark. And just it felt so weird. It's like a 38-minute video. I think I titled it Paranormal Slacktivity, and we just tried to turn it into like a comedic video. But yeah, absolutely. I relate to everything that you just said. So that's really cool. And you have it. Yeah, I know you're sending me the messages right now to to check that out. As soon as we're done, as soon as we wrap up, I'm gonna check that out. And then to have somebody like a hunter who would usually, I guess, in my opinion, almost fall in line of skeptical thinking, because they're obviously looking for animals and whatnot in that story. And
they don't want to admit that there would be something out there bigger than them. I mean, if you talk about the food chain, hunters should be on top of the food chain, especially out there. I mean, obviously the attacks that happen, bears and even wild boar can be scary, predator cats out there, things like that. I mean, obviously there's dangers to it, but in the raw food chain, it should be hunters on top.
Yeah.
So to have an unidentified creature is unsettling and unnerving, and the last thing a hunter ever wants to acknowledge or admit if they're a true avid outdoorsman, you know?
And by the way, the next time you guys have us on the show, if there's a next time, remind me to tell you guys about the Skinwalker Ranch when we went there.
Oh my God. There absolutely will be another time. What are you doing tomorrow?
We didn't go inside Skinwalker Ranch, but we definitely lurked the boundaries
way closer than we were supposed to get in the middle of the night. Yeah, we barely scratched the surface because we do this every weekend. Basically,
crazy stuff.
We're always out there looking for weird. So we'd love to come back and take some of those stories next time.
That is a perfect.
That sounds like a whole nother episode. Just that itself.
We are absolutely going to have you on again if you will do the honors and come on. We will for sure unpack that story, because that's another fascination of mine for most of my life, and an episode we haven't done yet. So perfect stopping point. I think we'll leave it at that teaser. I want to thank you guys for joining us. This was an amazing episode.
Thank you so much.
Thrilled by it. You guys are astute professionals. I cannot thank you enough. I always
and really good audio.
Yeah, perfect. And such a deep, lovely voice.
I appreciate that.
I always give everybody the final minute to go ahead and promote your pages. I know you hit that at the beginning, but you can promote everything that you have again, and then we'll hit the little button and the outro video will play, and we'll wrap everything up.
Then I cry myself to sleep.
Well, we first and foremost, thank you guys so much for having us on the show. I mean, this is a fantastic time. We don't, as podcast hosts ourselves, we don't get the opportunity to come on a lot of other shows and talk weird and kind of talk shop. So thank you guys for that. But if you guys want to find more Tales from the Dark, the podcast, we're on every major podcast platform to search Tales from the Dark. YouTube.com/Tales from the Dark. That's our YouTube channel. Brittani edits all the videos. I narrate missing persons mysteries. If you guys are looking for true crime, missing hiker, national park mysteries, that sort of thing, you can find that. We also have the podcast version of Missing Persons Mysteries available on every single podcast feed. And then Phantom Farm. We have something else in the works for 2024 that we cannot announce yet, but maybe next time we're on the show, we can finally announce that. So if you guys want to support us in that endeavor, go to Amazon Prime, Phantom Farm. It's like $2. And I promise if you hate it, just tell me about it in the comments and I'll probably read it over on the Tales from the Dark podcast.
You absolutely will.
All right. I implore everybody to do that, but also don't hate it at all, because that's silly. Check their stuff out.
No bad vibes.
Yeah, we don't need any more of those coalition of critical thinking in the Bigfoot community. I'm sure about that. Okay, everybody.
I'm still banned.
Please listen to their stuff. Check them out. They're awesome. This was an amazing episode. like, subscribe, follow, all the usual stuff.
Squatch you later.
Thanks for squatching.